Grace sat on the edge of her bed long after midnight, staring at the folded divorce papers lying on the floor. They looked cold, quiet, final. The same way Daniel had looked at her earlier that morning when he said, "I can't do this anymore. I didn't marry you to struggle like this." She remembered how he didn't even blink after saying those words. His face had been blank, like she was nothing but a burden he couldn't wait to drop. He packed his clothes into that old brown bag he liked so much. He didn't even take all his things, just the ones he cared about. Then he walked out of their small apartment without turning back. Grace had stood there, holding the wall because her knees were shaking so badly she thought she might fall. She never imagined this day would come. Not after everything they had survived together. Not after all the nights she stayed up sewing dresses and selling them just to support the home. Not after she fed him when he had nothing. Not after she believed in him more than she believed in herself. She pressed her hands against her face, trying not to cry again, but the tears came anyway. Heavy tears that tasted like heartbreak. Daniel didn't leave because he stopped loving her. He left because her small business collapsed last month. Sales dropped to zero. The shop rent piled up. The landlord threatened her. And instead of helping her stand up again, Daniel ran straight into the arms of another woman, a woman with a shiny phone, long eyelashes, and a soft voice that never carried the weight of poverty. Grace whispered into the empty room. Why wasn't I enough? Her voice cracked. Her heart cracked too. She sat like that for a long time, hugging her knees, until she remembered something that made her lift her head slowly. Her mother's secret. The one only Grace knew. The one Daniel never imagined existed. Grace wiped her eyes as a small, trembling breath left her lips. He thinks I'm poor, she whispered. He thinks he left nothing. But Daniel was wrong. Very wrong. And soon, the truth would find him. The morning after Daniel left, Grace felt like the world had lost its color. She tried to get out of bed, but her body felt heavy, like she was carrying stones inside her chest. She finally forced herself up, walked to the mirror, and barely recognized the woman staring back at her. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her hair was messy. Her lips trembled every few minutes. She touched the mirror gently, as if trying to comfort the reflection. "You'll be okay," she whispered, although she didn't believe it yet. She walked slowly to the kitchen, made tea, but couldn't drink it. Her hands shook too much. She sank into a chair and opened the envelope her mother left for her before she died. Inside was a letter Grace had read many times, but never fully understood. "My daughter," it said, "I built something great for you. A future, a safety, a fortune. But you must keep it secret until the world shows its true face." Grace didn't know the full amount back then. She only knew her mother had investments, big ones, smart ones, hidden ones. Lawyers told her she couldn't access everything until she turned 30. She was 28 now, 2 years to go. Daniel had no idea. He always complained about how her business was small, how she didn't bring enough money, how she should think bigger. But he never knew she was already the daughter of a woman who built an empire quietly. And Grace kept the secret because her mother insisted she must marry for love, not money. Now, as she read that fading letter again, she felt something unfamiliar rising inside her. Strength. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that grows when life breaks you but doesn't kill you. She folded the letter and placed it against her heart. "Mama," she whispered, "you knew this day would come." Her phone buzzed suddenly. A message from an unknown number. "Hope you're doing fine." Her Daniel moved on. No name, no sympathy. Just gossip. Grace dropped the phone. The tears she had been holding came rushing again. She cried until her throat hurt. She cried until she couldn't breathe. She cried until her heart finally emptied itself of the pain. And then, when the tears dried, something inside her hardened. "He left me," she whispered. "But he didn't break me." She didn't know how she would rise. She didn't know when. But she knew one thing for sure. Daniel had walked out too early. and he would regret it more than she ever cried. 2 weeks passed, and Grace forced herself to return to her shop. The little sign above the door was faded, the glass front dusty, the inside almost empty. It hurt to see it like that, silent, tired, forgotten, the place where she had poured her heart, her sweat, and her dreams. She turned the key slowly and pushed the door open. The smell of old fabric and dust greeted her like a sad memory. Grace stepped inside and looked around at the empty shelves. She touched one gently, remembering the days when customers filled the shop, laughing, asking for designs, praising her work. She remembered how Daniel used to smile proudly when she made enough money to buy groceries. But the smile faded over time. The encouragement changed into complaints. His love turned into bitterness. And when the business finally fell, he didn't try to help her rebuild. He just gave up. Grace walked to the counter and sat on the old rotating chair. It squeaked loudly, making her smile a little through the pain. She spun slowly, letting memories pass through her mind. For a moment, she wondered if she was foolish for trying, foolish for dreaming, foolish for believing love would stay even when money ran out. But then she touched the letter again, the one her mother left, and strength washed through her once more. She stood up and walked to the door. She needed fresh air. When she stepped outside, she saw 2 women whispering and pointing at her. One said loudly, without shame, "That's her, the one whose husband ran off because she's broke." The other laughed like gossip was food. Grace felt something sting inside her, but she didn't let it break her. She lifted her head high and walked past them without a word. If you are reading this right now, hear this. People will always talk. They will talk when you fail. They will talk when you rise. So let them talk while you walk into your destiny. Grace reached home and sat on her bed again, wrapping her arms around herself. She missed Daniel. She missed the old him, the one before pride swallowed his heart. But she didn't miss the man he became. She didn't miss the insults. She didn't miss the pressure. She didn't miss the coldness. She cried again quietly, letting the pain out in soft waves. And then, when the tears dried, she whispered, "I will survive this." Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Different this time. She hesitated before answering. "Hello?" she said softly. A man's voice came through. "Is this Miss Grace Okafor?" "Yes," she answered. "This is Attorney Kelvin Brooks. We need to schedule a meeting regarding your mother's investments." "It's important." Grace sat up straight. Her heart began to race. "What? What happened?" "I can't discuss details over the phone," the lawyer said gently, "but I think it is time you learned the full truth." Grace felt her breath catch. "Time? Full truth? I'm available," she whispered. "Good," the lawyer replied. "Come tomorrow. Your life is about to change." As the call ended, Grace sat frozen. She held her chest, feeling her heart beating fast. Something big was coming. Something her mother had prepared. Something Daniel had walked away from without knowing. "Mama," she whispered, "what did you leave for me?" For the next few days, Grace barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel walking away with his small brown bag. She heard his cold voice saying, "I didn't sign up for poverty." The words echoed in her mind like a hammer hitting the same spot again and again. But on the fourth morning, something changed. She woke up early, before the birds even began singing. The house was still dark, but Grace felt a tiny spark inside her chest, a small push that whispered, "Stand up." She sat up slowly, touched her heart, and let out a long breath. She remembered her mother's letter. She remembered her promise to keep her inheritance secret until the right time. She remembered the strength her mother carried, the strength she needed now. Grace got out of bed, washed her face, and tied her hair back. When she looked in the mirror, her eyes were tired but determined. She whispered, "Enough crying. I need to rise." She walked to her shop one last time. The place was still empty, but instead of feeling pain, she felt peace. She looked around and touched the counter gently. "Thank you." she whispered to the space that once fed her dreams. You served me well. If you're reading this right now, hear this clearly. Sometimes you must close one door yourself before God can open a bigger one for you. Don't be afraid of endings, they are often beginnings dressed in disguise. Grace locked the shop and put the key in her pocket. She didn't know what the next step would be, but she knew she couldn't stay stuck in a place that reminded her of loss. Just as she turned to leave, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello, is this Miss Grace Okafor? A deep voice asked. Yes, she replied softly. This is Attorney Kelvin Brooks, the voice said. It is time. We need to finalize your mother's estate. I have documents prepared for the transfer. Are you available to come to the city office this week? Grace froze. Time? Transfer? Her hands began to shake again, but not from fear. This time, it was from disbelief. Yes, she whispered. I'm available. She ended the call and held the phone tightly. The wind blew softly against her face, as if the world itself was congratulating her. Daniel was out there living like a man who had won something. But soon, he would realize he had walked away from gold and jumped into dust. Grace didn't know it yet, but this phone call was the beginning of her rise, the rise that would shock everyone who doubted her. Attorney Kelvin's office was cold and expensive looking. The chairs were smooth leather and the air smelled like fresh paper and quiet money. Grace sat nervously, twisting her fingers together. She wasn't ready for anything big. She wasn't ready for surprises. Her heart was already too tired. Miss Okafor, the attorney greeted as he entered the room with a thick brown file. Thank you for coming. He sat across from her, placed the file gently on the table, and opened it. Papers filled the folder. Contracts, accounts, statements, signatures, seals. Grace's breath caught in her throat. Kelvin adjusted his glasses and looked up at her with a calm smile. Your mother was a remarkable woman, he said. She worked quietly but built extraordinary wealth, and she put everything in your name. Everything, Grace whispered. He nodded. Her companies, her shares, her international investments, her real estate, her patents, and the trust fund she told you about. Grace's hands trembled, her ears buzzed. She felt lightheaded. Wait, I thought the trust was small, she stammered. Kelvin shook his head. Your mother didn't want to worry you. She wanted you to build your own life first. But Grace, the fortune is not small. He turned the page and slid the document toward her. As of today, once you sign these transfer papers, your total net worth will be exactly $104 million. The room went silent. Grace blinked. Once, twice, 100. What? I think you made a mistake, she whispered, her voice breaking. Kelvin smiled kindly. I triple checked. Grace covered her mouth with both hands. Tears filled her eyes this time, not from pain, but from overwhelming shock. She remembered days she slept hungry, nights she cried in secret, moments she felt worthless. She remembered Daniel shouting, You're holding me back. You're too small. Your dreams will never feed us. And now, Grace was a millionaire. Not because of luck, not because of marriage, but because her mother believed in her future long before she could see it herself. If you are reading this part right now, pause and hear me clearly. Never let anyone convince you that you are nothing. Your value does not disappear because someone refuses to see it. Kelvin placed the pen on the table. Are you ready to sign? Grace wiped her tears, lifted her chin, and took the pen with steady fingers. Yes, she whispered. I'm ready. She signed the papers slowly, each stroke of the pen breaking another chain from her past. When she finished, the lawyer shook her hand gently. Congratulations, he said. Your life has changed. Grace stepped out of the office into the bright afternoon sunlight. She felt lighter. braver, stronger, and far, far richer than the man who abandoned her. Daniel walked away because he thought she had nothing. Now he was the one with nothing. And Grace, she was just beginning. Daniel slept in the hospital chair with his head resting on Miriam's blanket. He didn't mean to fall asleep, but exhaustion pulled him under like deep water. When he opened his eyes again, morning sunlight was slipping through the thin hospital curtains. Miriam was still unconscious. Her breathing was slow and soft. Machines beeped beside her, steady but worrying. Daniel stood up and stretched his aching back, then gently brushed Miriam's hair away from her face. She looked so small, so tired, so different from the strong woman who used to chase him with a spoon, laughing, saying, "Eat before it gets cold, my boy." He blinked fast to keep tears away. A doctor walked in, holding a clipboard. His face looked serious, too serious. "Her condition is getting worse," the doctor said quietly. "We need to operate today." Daniel nodded quickly. "Do whatever you need to save her. Please." The doctor paused. "The surgery is expensive, very expensive." Daniel's heart dropped. He checked his pockets. Nothing. He checked his bank app. Almost empty. His boss had fired him yesterday. He had no one else to call. He felt like someone had punched him in the chest. Is there any help?" Daniel asked, his voice shaking. "We'll try what we can," the doctor replied, "but we need approval soon." The doctor left and the room felt cold again. Daniel sat beside Miriam, holding her thin hand between both of his. "What do I do?" he whispered. "Tell me, what do I do?" Her eyes stayed closed. Daniel wiped his face and looked up. "Anyone listening to this, please never wait until someone is gone before showing love. If you still have someone who cares for you, tell them thank you today. Life is too short to hold back love." He kissed the top of Miriam's hand. Then he stood, took a deep breath, and whispered into the quiet room, "I'm not giving up on you. I'll find a way." He walked out of the hospital with tired legs and a heavy heart, ready to do the impossible, even if it meant selling everything he owned to keep Miriam alive.